Before I say a few words for my mom, I just want to give my compliments to my sister Darlene and my wife Kathy for planning, like organizing everything, picking the colors, deciding food and all that stuff. You guys did a great job. It was great. Should I stand back a little bit?
Yeah, it's only because of the speaker, actually, if you go a little further in. Okay.
So, where's my mother? Where is she? Oh, hey. Well, I'll tell you one thing. As a parent myself, Mom, I have a great appreciation for what it means to be parents. Thinking back to the days when we were younger, growing up with the Tones, and doing all sorts of stuff. Many trips to the emergency room. Sherry with the broken leg, right?
Yeah.
Darlene got hit by a car on Main Street. I got hit by a car on my way to middle school. Stephen has fair share of stuff too. Yeah, I was going to say about it. One thing I remember in particular, and I don't know which one of us kids it was. Maybe it was me. I don't remember how it got resolved or what it was, but all I remember is me on the phone to my mom. Mommy, I got friskies up my nose. Apparently as a kid I had the desire to put a frisky up my nose, and I couldn't get it back out. Oh, anyway, it was fun. We've had quite a few laughs over that one. But, you know, on the serious side, you know, every parent always gives their kids some advice. And my mom gave me advice one day. You probably don't remember, Mom, but I was having some tough times. I was just struggling. You know, maybe I wanted to be coddled a little bit, but, you know, that's not what I needed. And you said to me, you know what? You said, Scott, so I do what I have to do to survive. You know, if I gotta stand on the roof, I'll stand on the roof, but that's what it takes to survive. And I didn't quite understand what that meant, Mom. I do now. She doesn't like to stand on the roof, that's what it means. But suffice to say, I definitely understood what that meant, and it just means you do what you have to do to survive. And so that was something I took to heart. And I could tell a few more stories like that, but I'd like to end it with one last memory. When we were growing up, and Aunt Rose, I'm sure you remember this as well, we all remember it, right? I mean, making the Easter bunnies for Easter, the chocolate Easter bunnies, you melt the chocolate, and when you're a young kid, melting that chocolate in the double boiler, you got the mold, you pour it in one half, and then you seal it, and you flip it over, and you put it in the refrigerator. You wait a little while till it cools, you flip it again, so it makes the whole bunny, and then this beautiful Easter bunny, hollow chocolate. It was delicious. That was definitely one of my nice memories from my childhood. So rather than go on and on, I'm going to pass the mic over to my brother.
Okay, so those of you who know me, you know, have seen me very recently. Handing me a mic is a very dangerous thing. But 1970s was a very crazy time, and I remember it very well. If you think back, is that the country was in shambles. We were coming to the end of the Vietnam War, and the long lines of gas. You know, you'd have to wait online for that, and you know, it was just a very tough time. We wondered what the future has, and then the terrible day came that the Beatles broke up. But in complete seriousness, in that time, my mother found herself with 4 children. Raising them by herself in Kings Park. It was a very difficult time because she had no education, she had no work experience, and she had a house and 4 children. And she had to go from a dead start. And so when I look back at it with the experience I have now, I could see she had 3 priorities in her life. Number 1 was to get her education and get a job. Number 2 was to keep the house, because that was the only security we had, was keeping that house. And number 3 was to establish her own identity as a person. Now you might think now, we look back at times, through the prism, but back then, I remember seeing every letter that came to the house. It didn't say Mrs. Anita Weber, it said Mrs. my father's name. And when we look back at it now, it seems bizarre, but really it was. I remember my mother recounting several stories to me. I remember when she wanted to get a telephone in her own name. They wanted her to give a deposit. She had a telephone for 20 years. And it's not like she wanted to have Mrs. Anita Cody, which would have been fine, her maiden name, and today we wouldn't even think anything of that. And then it would also be fine if it was Miss Anita Cody Weber. It wasn't even that. She just wanted Anita Weber listed as the phone. And she would not give up. And you know what happened? They listed the phone in her name. Even right down the block here, I could point to the building, you could look out the building, you see the Kings Park Public Library. And right out there, she went to the library to get her name on the library card. And she had to fight for it, just to have Mrs. Anita Weber on there. Because they want to know how she would pay for it. If the kids, whatever, I'm sure we still doing time on a late book fee. But those were the battles that we faced. And it didn't end there. It was things like, I remember as a young kid, she didn't know the rules, but there's certain rules established. I remember I was terrible at baseball. Ralphie could attend to that. Me and Ralphie would be in the outfield picking donuts, picking daisies while the balls were over our head. And Uncle Vinny like, what are you guys doing out there? But the only sport I was worse at than baseball was basketball. And my mother would come to the basketball games, and I would never play. And she didn't understand that was the way it was. And so she would yell at the basketball coach, my son's gonna play, my son's gonna play. And the basketball coach would say, no, you have to battle for your time on the field. But she battled for it, and I played every basketball game to the detriment of our team, and I think I came in last place that year. But in all seriousness, it was very, very important because those were the battles she fought. I remember at father and son night down at Indian Head School, she was going to take me to father and son night. And they stopped her at the door and said, you couldn't go in. And she said, no, I'm taking my son to father and son night. And she created a big commotion. And know who came out? Uncle Vinny. Uncle Vinny heard the commotion, and he came out, and he convinced my mom, who was committed to take me in, so Uncle Vinny took me in. And it wasn't until many years later, it was very ironic to me, because my mom recounted several stories how Uncle Vinny lived just a couple of blocks over, and he was growing up without a dad, and my grandfather would take care of Uncle Vinny, and then take him out on places. So it kind of goes to show you the things that you do spin around back at life. And those were some of the things I remember most. And I remember when my mom finally got a job. It was like her first job, real job that required her skills. And she got a credit card. She had a $500 credit limit on it. And the first thing she did, she went out and bought me a motorcycle. And all the things that we could have done. And I wondered why she did that. Because over the years, like I wrenched on these motorcycles, they never worked. And I think, I look back at it, she felt bad because at times it was very difficult for us because we were really broke for a while. I mean, really broke. And a lot of ways she probably felt that, we didn't have a lot of things. So as soon as she had that opportunity, those are the types of things that she did. And, and those are the types of things that I remember now at some of the sacrifices. I remember one last thing is that when she had a job and they promoted her boss's golfing buddy over her, she filed a grievance and she got the job. And it wasn't about self-identity then, it was about taking care of her family, making sure you had health care and other things. And those were the battles that she fought. And But at times there were things crazy. I didn't understand. Like, if I would leave my socks on the floor, she would blow a conniption. She'd run around the house and say, "You want to see a maniac? I'll show you a maniac."
It's true.
And then,
I'm gonna sing that song.
and then I remember her car getting stolen. And then I went to pick her up. And I was expected to see a maniac. And she was calm and cool as can be. And I was flabbergasted. I was like, "Someone stole your car." It's like, "Hello?" And she said to me something I'll always remember, and this is the whole point of my long monologue here. And she said to me, she said, "I can't avoid someone stealing my car. You could certainly pick your socks up off the floor." And it's true. And so as time went on, I remember shortly before my marriage, my wife and, you know, we were in the car, my mother was talking to me about advice and things like that. And she said to me, and something that, if I leave you with this one thought, is that it's not the diamonds. It really isn't. It's not the diamonds, it's not the vacations, it's not the cars that make a good relationship. It really isn't. Although those things are important. I mean, it's really not going to pass by a diamond ring or something. Those things are important. But it's the everyday things that matter. It's the everyday things, because those show you really care. Because those are things you have to face every day. And those are the things that make a good relationship and make a relationship last. It's those common courtesies every day. And that's certainly a standard that I idealize and may not live up to, but I try really hard. And I believe if you live your life in that way, and you're kind to the people around you, you take my mother's advice, someday when you're 80 years old, all your family will come together and wish you a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Mom.
All right. I'm going to say something first. I have to say, my mom was a tough cookie, she still is, and my brother Steve took her for a run for her money. He was climbing the walls at 2 years old. We didn't know we could keep him in the backyard, and I remember many times my mom crying on my shoulder.